I remember reading about an interview with Jack Welch, and they asked him one time, you're such a predominant figure in business and culture. When you come into a company to turn things around, why do you always fire the top leaders? He said, well, obviously they don't know how to do their job. And the interviewer said, but realistically, these are the CEOs, the CFOs of these major companies. When you come in, wouldn't it be easier to work with them to have the continuity that the company needs? And he said, look, the reality is if they brought in Jack Welch to fix the problem that the company has, it's because the change that's necessary hasn't been taking place. And if the CEO and the CFO and the other top leadership knew how to make that change, they wouldn't have called me in the first place. So it makes no sense for me to come in as their interim CEO or chairman of the board and keep the same team that ran the company in the ground. They've all got to go. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. Change is a hard thing to face. I like to listen to a lot of different leaders on their viewpoints, and I've quoted a couple there. John Maxwell regularly says, change doesn't happen until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain it takes to change. That might be true if you're in the gym working out trying to lose a few pounds, or if you're trying to build a business and you realize you have to take out loans and sacrifice time and sacrifice things, and you might have to, as Dave Ramsey says, live on mac and cheese, pork and beans and mac and cheese, and pork and beans and mac and cheese, until you pass that hump of investment in your business where it's actually generating more money than it's taking. But change doesn't happen until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. Myles Munroe says that we have to understand that our change and transition requires principles and boundaries. There's got to be an outer limit to our change. You can come into your house and move all the furniture you want to and redecorate and get rid of old furniture and bring in new furniture and paint the walls. But what you can't do easily is just move a wall or change a doorway. Unless you're talking about a major structural change that you've done the engineering work and you've asked the questions about remodeling. I can tell you a story of a change, and I won't say any names. It's been a decade. It's been a couple of decades ago now, but a family was in the house flipping idea. They thought, well, we'll buy this house, we'll make it better, we'll improve it, and we'll flip it. This was long before flippers were well known. But their idea was that because the house was really small, but it was on a lot of land, rather than adding on and taking up more land, they would just go up. And so they literally built a second story on a house that was originally built to be a one-story house. Now, in theory, that sounds good. And if you build the right bracing and build the right floors, you can do that, and that's awesome. The challenge is the foundation of the house was built at the turn of the century, and it was built for a one-story house. A lot of people don't think that just because it's resting on the ground and it's made of concrete, it could ever fail. But that's exactly what happened. A house that had stood for almost 100 years collapsed into the ground when the weight of a second story was added to it. Now, they did a phenomenal job in the cosmetics of it. So when you drove by the house, you thought, wow, that's a beautiful two-story house. And you didn't realize that only half of it was originally there, and it collapsed to the ground. See, there are principles that sit behind every change. Every change requires that it fit within that framework, within that mold. And it's nice to say we made a change for the sake of making a change. We made a change for the sake of our profit margins. We made a change because it'll make the company look better. We made a change because we wanted to. We wanted to be the one who made a change, and everybody looked at us and said, wow, look at that change. But see, sometimes that whimsical desire to make a change in society, in culture, in the way things are done is really nothing more than the vanity of saying, I was the one that made the change. The change wasn't necessary. The change wasn't eminent. The change wasn't something that had to be done for the good of all. It was just, I had the authority to make a change, and I wanted to make a change. And it's like building that second story. Sometimes in order for change to happen, you've got to stand in the way. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood in the way of certain change in order to bring about other change. He became the dividing rock in the middle of the river where the flow of society had to decide one side or the other. As leaders, you have to be about change. Managing change, guiding change, planning change, facilitating change, and in some cases, resisting change. But that's on you as leaders, in your family, in your organization, in your life. Change happens all the time. But will it happen on your watch according to the principles that it's supposed to? Will you have to stand your ground and fight it, maybe even to lose everything? Or will change push you over and push you downstream with it? It's a new year. Change is inevitable. It's coming. Which side of change will you be on? I'm Loren Norris for Leading Leaders Podcast on Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.